Good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with Tucker. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors, and joining us on looks like a partially sunny day is Sabra Tucker, your Executive Director for OREA. So good morning, Sabra. I'll let you unmute there and greet our folks that are on the call this morning. How are you today?
I am doing okay. Yes, the sun is shining. We were under a frost warning up here, or a freeze warning up here in Oklahoma this morning. I don't think we had it in where I live, but it was a lot cooler than we're used to.
We're putting up our Christmas tree pretty soon, so
I'm not ready.
it will happen. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll get to hear from you in just a moment. Just a couple of quick housekeeping details. Everyone on the call today is in a listen only mode. And that means if you've got comments or questions, please feel free to put those into chat or into Q&A, and we can answer those. If they're specific to you, we'll probably respond back electronically. But if it's something that the whole group could benefit from, we'll answer those questions as well. And then at the end, what we've been doing is we'll stop recording, and if you don't feel comfortable typing something in, you can simply hold up your hand. We can unmute you and we can take your question live when we go about it in that regard. So we do record every one of these sessions. We put them out on the OREA website. You can find that under the member benefits section. When you go onto the homepage, like member benefits, and down at the bottom, it will have your Tuesdays with Tucker or Tea Time with Tucker on there. And you can see the recordings from the past several that we've had. So highly encourage you to participate there. You'll also see this QR code down here in the bottom. We're going to show you that at the end as well. That's just an easy way for you to access information that you want to know more about, what the benefits and services you have through OREA. We can help you out there. So Sabra, you talked about frost. I know we've got some other things coming up here. Early voting probably starts pretty soon. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. In fact, the last day, also, if you want to request an absentee ballot, say you don't want to get out, or maybe you're going on a cruise or something wonderful and you're going to be out of town, you can request your absentee ballot in Oklahoma up to October 24th at 5 p.m. And this is a very important election cycle. Mainly, our emphasis wants to be get out the vote. Oklahoma sadly has low voter participation compared to the rest of the country. And we really want to encourage people to go to the polls, especially since it's a midterm election. And actually, I'm preaching to the choir because our members are the largest voting demographic. Our people vote. Our people go vote. So what we should be doing is encouraging those younger people, our adult kids, adult grandchildren, how important voting is. And we have a lot of voter apathy in Oklahoma. And I hear the comment we hear most is, my vote's not going to make a difference. But I think we need to encourage our young people that your vote does matter. And so that's how we can help get out the vote as OREA members.
Absolutely. I saw the guide that was on social media. Is there any specific topic or any particular piece of legislation or anything like that that OREA members need to be aware of?
Well, no, there are actually, we don't have any state questions. We are an initiative petition state. So people can have, the people can bring ballot initiatives to be voted on by the state population, the voting population. But we don't have any state questions this time. That's kind of unusual for us. But we have some important races. One of the ones that OREA is really watching is the race for Oklahoma governor and the race for Oklahoma state superintendent. And we do have a political action committee that is separate from the OREA organization, and they have made recommendations, and we'll be sending out more information about that, so you can watch that. We don't care what party someone is politically affiliated with. What we care about is how they stand on our 6 legislative goals. A very important one being in that we're hoping to bring legislation this next session when it begins in February, is some type of benefit adjustment a cost of living adjustment based on, the inflation, or some type of increase in benefits for our members, John, because inflation, as we know, if you watch the news at all, you know that we are under some inflationary pressures in our economy right now. And we know the cost of healthcare premiums are going up for lots of insurance providers. And so gas has gone down quite a bit, but I noticed a box of cereal the other day that I like to eat was $7.59. I will have to hold off on Lucky Charms.
Well, they're keeping the box size the same, but they're shrinking the contents inside of it, so it's inflation on both sides.
There's probably less marshmallows in there too. So
that's the only reason
I do love Lucky Charms. Don't tell my mom, because she didn't like us eating those sugary cereals.
Oh,
but
no.
I'm trying to make a light of it and use humor to kind of fight back some of this inflationary fatigue, but it is a real impact, especially for people on fixed incomes. So that is something that we definitely want to address with our legislature. We will have some new people in the state legislature. We had some people term out. We have newly elected people. And so OREA always tries to keep their pulse on everything going on at the state legislature. And John, I have something exciting that almost slipped by me.
Okay.
But on October 31st of this year, OREA is celebrating its 70th birthday.
That's outstanding.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes. And so that's very exciting. So for 70 years, we have been in operation to protect and defend retirement benefits for Oklahoma's educators. And we're very proud of the work we do. And by our members, they are the OREA. I'm not the OREA. I'm just here to, kind of be the ringmaster, so to speak. But our members are really what make us such a great organization, because they, even just by being a member, being able to say, I'm one of the 14,000 OREA members, that sends a message to the legislature that's a lot of people out there that are paying attention to what we do here at the state capitol to take care of our retirees. And so encourage someone to join. Say, did you know I'm a member of this organization that's been in existence for 70 years, protecting our pension. And so won't you join us and make us even stronger?
Absolutely. Now, you said you were the ringmaster. You've been out all over the state visiting circuses out there. What are you finding out from the local chapters that are getting back together now?
Well, one thing, they're very glad to be back together and checking on each other. They are concerned, like we all are, like I said, about the inflation. They're concerned about, they want to make sure that the legislature does what they're supposed to do. And they're concerned about our schools. We know we have lots of alternatively certified teachers in Oklahoma, which is in and of itself not necessarily a bad thing. But, we have a lot of inexperienced people out there that are finding out what a difficult career teaching is. And we have experienced teachers who are weary, and we're still getting lots of inquiries about, hey, I'm looking into retirement. And so I've got appointments with people with that too, individuals. And one thing, I know that if you're on this call and you know people who are thinking about retirement and would like to do a review of how retirement works, it's not just me that can help, but every one of our AMBA representatives that work out there with David, they can answer lots of questions about teacher retirement, about Medicare, and putting those things together to be able to live your best life in retirement. So I want people to help spread that word that we have a team of people that is also working to help make their retirement years even better. So thank you all for that. And all of my thanks to AMBA team. We featured them in our newsletter this last month. Their picture went out to in our latest newsletter that went out. We had a whole page dedicated to our AMBA team here in Oklahoma. I don't know if you probably can't see that really well, but if you didn't get that newsletter, call our office. We can send you another copy. So you can see their faces, and we're really proud to work with them. So our thanks, John, to David and his team, and to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Saber. Appreciate that. Again, she mentioned it. You've got a lot of your, maybe, I don't want to say peers, that are still working, that are getting ready to retire. This may be a great Christmas present to gift them a membership in OREA for their first year if they're thinking about retiring, something like that. Those volume of members do speak loudly when you go to the Capitol. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate that, Sabra. I want you to hang on that way in case we get some questions about some of the topics we talk about today. We can cover that. My name is John Green. I work with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston, but I started my career, I started my education journey in Bethany, Oklahoma. Started in kindergarten and first grade there before we moved to Texas. Lived down here for most of my life. My wife is an elementary school teacher. My daughter there that you see in the middle, she just texted me. She starts student teaching next spring, but she passed a content test today. She was all excited about that. So she's almost there starting out her education journey. And I appreciate those of you who have taught, who have gone on now in retirement and fighting for active educators and for the future of your profession as well. So thank you very much for that. But most of my career I've spent in classrooms helping educators understand what their retirement years are like. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. We're going to talk about some issues that are pretty important and share with you from a personal perspective. I just kind of want to remind you, touch on some things that Saber mentioned. OREA is there to watch out for those things that you worked for all your life, your pension, some of the health benefits, COLAs, things like that, working towards that. And as she mentioned, getting those local chapters back together, keeping us connected, because that grassroots effort to elect officials, to keep them aware of issues that are impacting retired educators, starts locally, and then it bubbles up to the Capitol. That's what OREA does for you as well, and then brings these exclusive benefits and important things and discounts all to you to make your retirement years the best they can be out there. And she mentioned David. David is our leader, lives in Edmond. He and his team are scattered all throughout the state of Oklahoma. They can help you not only with the benefit aspect that you have with OREA, but as Saber mentioned, understand what your retirement life cycle looks like, things to look out for if you're under age 65, if you're over age 65, different things that you need to be aware of. David and his team are specially trained on that, and they're out really hard and heavy this week, making sure that members all across the state are taken care of. So I appreciate David doing that. We talk about this relationship between OREA and AMBA, Association Member Benefits Advisors. And for many, many years, not all 70 of the years that you've been around, but for many, many years, we've partnered with OREA to provide benefits and things that you may have left at the schoolhouse. Maybe whenever you left the schoolhouse, left your school district, you weren't able to take these benefits with you. OREA has stepped up and provides those benefits, access to those benefits for you. We have many members that will retire and maybe go out of state, move closer to grandkids, do something like that. But these are portable for whatever reason. They're not tied to any network. You can take them anywhere you want to. But some of the biggest reasons that OREA members appreciate having this relationship with AMBA and OREA is that you can extend access to your benefits to your parents or to adult children who may be aged out of your benefits. We want them to become members of OREA, but this gives you a way to get those group benefits for them that they didn't have. And especially with our topic today, when we're talking about long-term care, really can help prevent you from taking off extra time from another job to take care of a loved one, or vice versa. If you are now fully retired and you have to have care, but your daughter or your daughter-in-law, your son or son-in-law has a career, they don't necessarily need to take off if you've got the proper planning out there. So we're going to jump in and talk about long-term care today. We're going to recap some of the basics we talked about last month. We're going to look at the current environment in Oklahoma as well as in the nation and show you some new options out there. There are so many different options that are out there from the old traditional long-term care plans. We're going to address some common myths around what Medicare pays and doesn't pay, and Medicaid, because we get a lot of questions about Medicaid, which is, in my opinion, not a great option, but help you make the most of your endorsed options that are out there for you. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a history lesson to bring us to where we are today. And this is why I showed this slide here. Back in the early 90s, long-term care insurance became very popular, as many of us saw our grandparents or our parents go through a period where they had to be taken care of in a nursing home, home health care, home health aid, something like that. We realized that that cost could eat up at our retirement savings. And so you saw a pretty significant increase in policies, and many school districts offered a group long-term care plan that you could sign up for and get group benefits, group long-term care. You get an individual plan, but you got it at a group rate or group underwriting through the school, and you could take it with you when you left. Well, the millennium turns and 2000 comes in, and we started to see an incredible amount of individuals start to file claims. People started living longer. Alzheimer's became more prevalent. So companies started saying, we didn't price our products. We didn't price our level of care and coverage properly. So they started raising premiums significantly, started going back on policies and raising rates, tightening up underwriting guidelines. And so now we find ourselves that there are very, very few long-term care policies purchased out there today, but that hasn't changed the need. The good news and bad news in this is, the good news is advancements in diagnosis and treatment are driving life expectancies up. That's really a great thing from that perspective. And there's so many different options that are out there for receiving care. You don't have to be warehoused in a nursing home, or you can stay at home if you want to. So there's a lot of different options that are out there, a lot of kind of in-between places that can take care of you as well. The challenge on the other side is as we age, the need goes up and the costs follow up that way as well. The smaller family care pool is hitting us hard. I think about my grandparents, and they all grew up, my grandparents and brothers and sisters all grew up on either side of the Red River, Wichita Falls and into Oklahoma City. So we have family all scattered throughout. And all four of my grandparents were 7 siblings or more. So there was a large care pool that could take care of each other, could take care of their parents, that type of thing. Now we saw that my grandparents each had 3 or 4 kids. Those kids had 1 or 2 kids. So the care pool is shrinking. There's not as many people that can afford to take off work to take care of mom or dad. Policy language gets more restrictive. Medicare has made dramatic changes in what they pay for. And then so that's led to increased premiums for certain coverages, larger elimination periods that cost more. And then all of a sudden, the whammo of COVID-19 hit, and the way in which the government required certain nursing homes to make changes, it's really driven up costs, and it caused people not to necessarily want to have their parent in an assisted living facility or a nursing home. If you remember some of those early days in 2020, whenever the lockdown started, some of the news articles were focused around nursing homes and where COVID was hitting, or people wanted to get their parents out of nursing homes, things like that, in assisted living facilities. So we saw a large exodus that way, and it really has changed up how care is given in this COVID era out here. Despite all the good news, despite all the bad news, the thing that has not changed is that 70% of us, once we reach age 65 or over, are going to need some form of extended care in our lifetime. And that could be for a few months, or it could be for the rest of our life, depending upon the situation. So we're going to address some of these things as we go through here today and talk about that. I want to hit on this from the cost of care in Oklahoma. We addressed this last month in our long-term care 101 session, but I want to show you that the cost of care, depending upon where you are in the state, and I used both major cities, and I used Durant, kind of a more rural, smaller city, has changed dramatically depending on where you are. You see those numbers in red. That's the increase just over the past year of how much the cost has gone up. And usually what it has been is because the cost to staffing, the cost to provide the care, the cost of gas for a home health aide to come out, things like that has gone up. And so you can see where, somewhere, depending upon where you are, an assisted living facility where you have a semi-private or a single occupancy room, $3,800 in Tulsa, up to $4,800 in Oklahoma City. Nursing homes, semi-private versus private rooms have gone up. Tulsa's gone down a little bit. So again, you can kind of see that and get a gauge on this. The good news in this is, though, Oklahoma is still one of the least expensive cities or states to receive long-term care, whether it be home health aide or in person in an assisted living facility or nursing home. So you can see some of the costs there and you can plan accordingly. The one thing you can't do is you can't call the pension, you can't call the teacher retirement system and say, hey, double up my pension, I'm going into a nursing home or I need care. So just to give you an informed situation of what the current costs are out there. Then we looked at a traditional long-term care policy. And with a long-term care policy, we've seen most of the people that come to these webinars, about 50% of them have some sort of a care plan in place. And to receive long-term care coverage, we kind of presented this in the way of building a good hamburger. To qualify for your coverage, you have to lose usually 2 activities of daily living: dressing, toileting, bathing, feeding yourself, things like that, transferring, or you have a cognitive impairment like dementia or Alzheimer's. Once you have either one of those, you trigger your daily benefit amount, your length of coverage, how much you're going to get paid for yourself, for the nursing home facility. You have this elimination period. That's the amount of money you have to spend out of your pocket before you get coverage. And then certain plans dictate where you can receive coverage, whether it's at home, whether it's in a nursing facility or even an assisted living facility. Sabra touched on that inflation protection. I'd highly encourage you, if you have a plan, go back and look and see if you have some form of inflation protection rider on your policy. Because if it's automatic, that's great. If it's something that you had to make a decision on every couple of years, you may have some short time fuses on that you may have to decide on. So I encourage you to have that reviewed. And then some policies had some provisions that talked about non-skilled services, meaning that you could have someone just to come cook, clean, provide some light housekeeping, and just to watch somebody if necessary. So that's kind of the basic components of a traditional long-term care policy. We're going to show you some modernized options, show you some new trends that are out there, some things to think about, some things to be aware of as we go through there. So here's where we find about, I'd say 50 to 60% of the people that we talk to on a daily basis that have had a long-term care policy. Companies are coming back and increasing the rates. Some of them are increasing the rates to try to get out of the long-term care business, meaning they don't want to be in there anymore and they're just going to price you out of it, and you've spent all this money and now you don't have a policy in case you need it. Some of them want to stay in the business and they're trying to keep their premiums low, but again, you're seeing that way. Some are offering an alternative that says, hey, we can reduce your coverage and levelize your premium to maybe fit your budget a little bit better. Other individuals find that, hey, I took a large elimination provision or large elimination period in my policy initially, and now I realize I've got to pay 6 months out of pocket or 3 months out of pocket before my plan kicks in. That could be $15,000 to $30,000. What do I do about that? Or that, because of, like I said, of inflation, because of changes, things like that, that the coverage no longer matches what my need is, what my future cost availability is, things like that. Some benefits are restrictive. People want home care. Most people don't want to go to a nursing home. Some policies are restrictive about home care or have less coverage for home care. And so we're going to explore that just a little bit, because people want to be taken care of where they want to be. And it didn't make sense to me. It was positioned to me many, many years ago. Why would you want to work all your life, and we appreciate you taking care of our kids all your career, to have somebody else determine where you're taken care of? You want to have that control and that peace of mind. So here's the current reality. And I want you to write some of these numbers down, because if you have a policy, if you have a long-term care policy, you want to pull it out. I'd encourage you to have David and his team review it with you to show you what your provisions are, what your coverages are, because based on these current realities, you may or may not have the coverage you think you need, or you may have plenty of coverage. You may have more than you think you need, that type of thing. The average amount of time that someone stays in an assisted living facility. Now, this is one of those, what I call in-between facilities, to where you have your own apartment. You can participate down in the activities, go to lunch, breakfast, things like that. And if you need someone to come in and help you with some medication, maybe help you do a few things, you've got that available to you. The average time that people stay in an assisted living facility is about 28 months. Over half of those, 60% of those, end up moving to a skilled nursing facility sometime in their lifetime. That's what we would call a nursing home, for lack of a better term, a skilled nursing facility. The average stay in a nursing home is about 2.2 years. It varies men versus women. Men stay much less time in there. Women will stay longer. With my father, he spent about 22 months. So it was pretty close to average in there in the time that he spent in a nursing facility. Alzheimer's patients, on the other hand, they can spend an average of 9 years in a nursing facility. And that cost can be substantial because there are special memory care facilities. My father had dementia, stayed in a regular nursing home for a great period of time, for probably 18, 19 months, and then had to move to a true memory care facility that took care of special needs like Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you've got a history of Alzheimer's in your family, I would highly encourage you, if you've got a long-term care plan, make sure it covers more than just 1 or 2 years of coverage in that situation. But the stat on this page that jumped off to me big time was the fact that 47% of all nursing home residents stay less than 100 days. So almost half stay less than 100 days. And that is not because they passed away. That is usually because they did not have any type of long-term care plan. And that's when Medicare stops paying, is at 100 days. So when that happens and you have to go back home, you've got to make a decision. Who's going to pay? How's it going to take care of? So this is where we find ourselves currently today in the world of long-term care. Pulled a lot of different stats of government sources, a lot of different stats for different providers and carriers to kind of pull these numbers together so that you know your current situation, current health conditions, and what what it looks like out there, how you need to plan out there. There are other options out there. So many people think, well, I can't qualify for long-term care. I've got this long-term care plan that's very restrictive. I don't have the finances. How do I do this? Let's walk you through these different options out there now so that you can understand how you can address some of these things we've got here on green check marks that can be financially devastating to you, but more importantly, give you control of where and how you're taken care of. That's the main thing. We want you to have total peace of mind in that need there. So when we're talking about daily benefit amount and the length of coverage, this is truly the meat of a long-term care plan, because you want to have enough money to cover your expenses and you want to have it to last as long as you can have it last. Well, there are some options out there for weekly benefits and daily benefits up to $1,200 a week for a year, for 13 weeks going up to a year. So you can come in and you can say, all right, based on my financial situation, based on what I want to do with myself or with my spouse, we want to stay at home as long as possible before we go into any other type of care. You can select policies and select coverage that allows you to have a certain amount of coverage up to a year. This is what I've done with my mom. It will allow us to get her affairs in order if she does have to be moved, but it at least gives us something that can cover her for a year that we don't have to worry about it. The benefits are paid regardless of what Medicare does. Anything else that she has, it pays for that. And the other nice thing is, say you have a fall and you break your hip and you've got to have someone come out and take care of you for 3 or 4 months. There are certain policies that have recurring benefits subject to a lifetime maximum that would, after it's been a year that you had that fall in your care, that benefit restores back up 100%. So it's not like that you spend down your money. You've got options to grow that back up. And if something happens again, you've got care. So you've got some options out there that give you coverage for shorter periods of time, or maybe a longer, depending upon your situation. and different benefit amounts that you can supplement. So those are available out there for you as well. Now we talked about this elimination period. And again, this elimination period works just like a deductible on your homeowner's insurance. And you're all familiar with them up there in Oklahoma. You've got a hail deductible. If a hailstorm rolls through, you're responsible for the first $1,000, 1%, 2%, 5% of your home value that you've got to pay out of your pocket. The elimination period works the same way, that once you trigger a benefit, meaning doctor says you can't feed yourself, you can't bathe yourself, or you've got a cognitive impairment like dementia or Alzheimer's, the clock starts ticking on your coverage. The elimination period, 30, 60, 90, 180 days, is the amount that you have to pay out of your pocket for your care before your plan kicks in. There are some new options out there that give you coverage during that elimination period alone, so that day one, you have a fall. Day one, you're diagnosed with dementia. Day one, something happens. You can have immediate coverage and immediate payment coming in, and you're not having to go tap an old 403B or an IRA or have to sell a family asset to get that first dollar. We find that the first dollar is the hardest to find because you're trying to scramble to get care right immediately when you need it. And you may have assets that are tied up in tax deferred plans or with your pension, or you've got to get your kids all around that say, how are we going to take care of mom? That type of thing. That first dollar is the hardest. There are plans out there that meet that elimination period that give you smaller periods that you've got to wait that can cover that time period as well. And there's probably nobody on this call that would hold up their hand and say, man, I can't wait to get to a nursing home. That was the situation with my dad. My brother and I and my stepmother, we didn't want him to go to a nursing home, but he was at the point to where he was no longer safe to himself, and he was at risk to himself if he didn't have 24-hour around the clock watch and skilled care. And so if you don't want to go to a nursing home, there are some plans that allow you to select where you want to be taken care of. They can give you a lump sum of money that says, hey, however you want to use it, it's your choice to use it. You can use it how you want to. Some will pay just for skilled care, meaning that for that home health rehabilitation person to come out to your house and help you go through physical therapy, help you learn to walk again, get back up on your feet, take care of yourself, bathe yourself, wipe your backside, stuff like that. Some provide non-skilled home care. And in the case of my father, in his early stages of dementia, he was totally healthy otherwise, had no problems, wouldn't have triggered really any activities of daily living need. My stepmother says, I don't want him to go anywhere. The plan allowed for a non-skilled person to come out and basically just sit up at night so that he wasn't a flight risk. There were some years my stepmother still worked. And so that person could come to my dad's house, could stay there, cook a few meals, make sure he was safe, didn't wander off, things like that. That type of location of coverage and non-skilled care can be taken care of. And then some allow for even extra hospital stays from cash for that, emergency room visits if something like that takes place. So you've got some options if you want to stay at home, and you've got options for non-skilled care as well. So those to me are the most important. Again, because nobody wants to say, hey, I can't wait to get to the nursing home. I want to stay at home. I may want to, if my daughter has to quit work, I can still pay some of her expenses to take care of me at home, that type of thing, because so much of care is provided at home, but the people who care for you, it does take a toll on them as well. In fact, 73% of all long-term care is done in home by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. So the impact goes beyond just the person receiving the care. And the one thing that we've seen with long-term care is oftentimes it puts strain on marriages of your sons and daughters because somebody's got to take care of mom and dad. It can put strain there that can impact you going down the line. In the case of my family, my wife being a teacher, my daughter being a future teacher, if she had to quit her job, or my wife had to quit her job to take care of her parents or take care of us, that would stunt her pension growth. That would stunt her income for her family and her kids, things like that. and it really falls heavily on women and in the family. Unfortunately, it can impact a woman $300,000+ of their career earning potential to have to stop their career, take care of a family member who didn't prepare to have care in their home situation. So again, the impact of long-term care goes beyond just the person receiving the care. And that's why we talk about that. So we run into these common concerns out there. People say, well, I'm too old. The good news is there are plans that are available up to age 89. So you're really never too old out there, depending upon the situation. Some people will say, I've got health issues. The one nice thing about some of these type of plans these days, unlike long-term care plans, is that you can have less restrictive health qualifications. And it doesn't prevent you from receiving the type of coverage that you want. And then a lot of people tell us, I've got a long-term care policy, but my premiums keep climbing. I don't think I can afford to keep this. I'm recording this, so I'm going to go on record. Do not cancel your policy. Please, please, please let us review it. You may have options. There may be some benefits that you have earned in your policy that even if you stop paying your policy, you still have some form of coverage. So don't just cancel your policy because you can't afford it. There may be options that you have out there. Let us review it. You probably have some options that you weren't aware of, some ways that you maybe can levelize your coverage, levelize your premium, things like that. So there's a lot of things that you've got out there. So let's look at some options out there as well for short-term events, like a knee replacement surgery or a slip and fall with the first ice storm or something like that. The average short-term recovery time for a hip replacement is about 4 to 6 weeks. A knee replacement is up to 3 months before you can get back on your feet, no pun intended. There are plans that could pay you up to $15,000 to defray some of those costs of having an in-home physical therapist come in your house 3 times a week. With Medicare, if you don't spend 3 nights in the hospital as an inpatient, you don't receive any of those after the treatment or after the surgery care that would be that skilled nursing care, that physical therapy. These type of plans cover that. Medicare changes all the time and it can really impact you. So when we get right down to it, when we're talking about paying for extended care, everybody pays. Unfortunately, most of us have to draw down our personal savings, sell an asset, something like that, trigger a tax consequence before we want to, or we have to get assistance from family and friends. It could impact their financial viability as well. Some will go into the Medicaid program. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Others will choose for extended care coverage. They've taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and planned out what they're going to do with their life as they go forward. So we often get this misconception, and I hear this from my mom and the ladies in her Sunday school class at church, talk about, well, Medicaid's going to pay for everything. Or a family will get together and say, let's just hide all of mom's assets. Let's transfer everything, get a lawyer to do all this kind of stuff like that, hide all that assets, and then we'll put her on Medicaid and Medicaid will take care of her. I will tell you, Medicaid from 2 different perspectives is probably not the route you want to go. First of all, it's very difficult to qualify for. If you start applying, they're going to look back 5 years and say, what did you do to get to this point? And they may find that you started hiding assets, putting them in trust, doing certain things, selling stuff like that. They're going to say, you were probably trying to do this to get Medicaid. That's a strike against you. The other side of that is, in the facility where my father was the first time, right outside of Austin, there were 3 wings. 2 of those wings were private payer wings, meaning that people paid out of their pocket, had long-term care. Those wings had so much of the care provided, so many more staff members, activities, things like that. Then there was a 3rd wing that was the Medicaid wing. The patient to staff ratio wasn't as high as I would have liked, wasn't always the most active wing, that type of thing. It wouldn't be a place I'd want to put someone that I loved that way. So you've got those 2 issues where you've got to really spend down all your assets, or you've got a situation where you don't want to go because it's a Medicaid paid wing. What we find is that educators, usually because of their pensions don't qualify. Even if they put all of their stuff in a Miller's trust, including assigning their pension away, which I don't know why anybody want to assign their pension away. They don't usually qualify for Medicaid. And then the state of Oklahoma, on top of that, after you pass away, they're going to go back to your estate and try to get the money anyway. So Medicaid is really not a way to go. It was not designed to be this way. And it wouldn't be somewhere that I'd want to put anybody that I cared about to go the Medicaid route. So let's look at some other unique ways that you can pay for your long-term care depending upon your situation, whether it's health issues, costs, just don't want to spend it, don't think I'll need it, that kind of stuff like that. Let me show you some different ways that you can handle this. One, if you have a life insurance policy that you've probably taken out in the last 20 years or so, it probably has a provision, and this provision is free. It's a free provision in your life insurance policy that allows you to accelerate a portion of the face amount for long-term care situations. So for example, say you have a $200,000 life insurance policy and you need long-term care. It's got a provision in there that says it will allow you to get 50% of your face amount up to a certain dollar amount paid to you before you pass away that you can use for long-term care. Great benefit that's in there. It's free. It doesn't cost the company any money because they're going to pay out the same amount when you pass away if they pay you half now and half later. The big thing you got to pay attention to this is it is truly and usually confinement in a nursing home. So it won't pay for home health aid. It won't pay for home health care or assisted living facility, something like that. It truly has to be in a long-term care or nursing home situation. So that's one option that's out there. If you've got a life insurance policy, again, have us review it. We can show you where that provision's in there. That could be a good opportunity there. The second opportunity or option that's out there is a tax deferred asset protection plan. This is the one that I use because of my father's history with dementia. It makes it much more difficult for me to qualify for long-term care. The other thing is, what if I take out a long-term care policy and I don't use it? You know, that type of thing. These tax deferred asset protection plans has provisions inside of it that if I need long-term care, I can take out as much money as I want to without any penalty. Or if I already start to receive a benefit payment out of this plan and I have to have long-term care, it will double that payment. So it gives me peace of mind that my wife and I are protected. We took an old pension plan that I had from another company and put it into this tax deferred asset protection plan that allows us to know that our long-term care is taken care of. We don't have to worry about it. It's taken care of regardless of the situation. Both the life insurance and this tax deferred asset protection plan are simply strategies if you don't want to spend the money on long-term care that you might never use, or you have health issues that would prevent you from qualifying. That's some situations you can use that way. Other individuals will use their required minimum distributions, your RMDs, things that you have to take out, whether you reach 70 and a half or now 72 from your tax deferred plan. They will take those RMDs and they will use them to buy a long-term care plan. The required minimum distributions, the way the government set it up, is really nice. Instead of paying taxes on those required minimum distributions that you have to take because the government says you have to take them, if you use them to buy a long-term care plan, a qualified long-term care plan, those distributions are tax-free. So you're getting basically 30% discount because you're not paying taxes on that money to use it for your long-term care plan. That's the way that you can do it that way. The same goes for a health savings account. If you or your spouse had a health savings account, not a flexible spending account, but a health savings account, you can also use those premiums to pay for long-term care and save money that way in taxes. And then some people, if they don't have the funds, if they don't have the health situation, they will take a large lump sum cancer, heart attack, or stroke policy. And if they have a stroke or a heart attack or cancer that requires them to have long-term care, they'll use that lump sum to pay for that type of care that way. So there are a lot of different options out there. You're not having to be locked in with the old traditional long-term care policies that's available for you out there. So I know we have talked about a ton of different things today in this long-term care 201. I appreciate you joining us on that. We've got a few other things I want to share, but first of all, I want to show you how you can get information if you want to. If you'll take your smartphone, open up your QR code, open up your camera feature to your QR code, to your camera, hover over that QR code, a little form will pop up. You can select, I'd like a benefit review or long-term care or recovery care, something like that. Put your information in there. It'll come back to me. David and his team will contact you and walk you through, especially if you have a long-term care plan already, have somebody review it. We do reviews every day just to give you peace of mind, to show you, here's what you have. Don't change this. You may want to look at that. Use that QR code. If you're on a tablet or on your phone and you don't have access to your camera feature, you can simply email me at johnjon.green@amba.info. I'm going to stop recording now and we're going to move forward.